What if I told you one of the greatest fortunes in American history was built on something you could find for free, lying in a pond in the middle of winter? In 1806, a 22-year-old from Boston stood on the deck of a ship he had chartered with borrowed money. In the cargo hold below him sat 130 tons of ice cut from a frozen pond on his family's farm. His destination? The Caribbean island of Martinique, a place where most people had never seen ice in their lives. His name was Frederick Tudor, and the newspapers back home were having a field day. The Boston Gazette ran a story openly mocking him, calling the venture a joke, saying the whole town was laughing. His own father thought he had lost his mind. Think about that for a moment. Before he ever made a dollar, the entire city had already decided he was a fool. Now, here's where the story gets interesting, because here's what actually happened when that ship arrived in Martinique. The ice survived the voyage, the idea did not. Nobody knew what to do with it. There were no ice boxes, no cold drinks culture, no storage. Tudor watched his frozen cargo melt into the harbor along with thousands of dollars he didn't have. Total loss. Most people would stop there, and honestly, who would blame them? The market had spoken, the expert had spoken, his family had spoken, but Freddie Tudor made a decision that separates two kinds of people in business in life. The victim asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The victor asks, "What is this teaching me?" Tudor looked at that melted cargo and didn't see failure. He saw a research project he had just paid tuition for. The problem wasn't the ice. The problem was that he had shipped the product into a market with no infrastructure to use it. So he started building the infrastructure himself. Ice houses in the tropics, insulation experiments. He tested straw, wood shavings, blankets until he finally discovered that simple sawdust, a waste product that Boston lumber mills were literally giving away, kept ice frozen for months, and life kept punching back. The next several years were brutal. Failed shipments, mounting debt, and then the bottom. Frederick Tudor was thrown into debtors' prisons. Not once, twice. Picture it. The man who told everyone he'd revolutionize commerce sitting in a jail cell because he couldn't pay his bills, while the people who laughed at him got to say, "I told you so." This is the part of every great story that nobody puts on the poster. The dark middle, the stretch where only evidence available says quit. And this is exactly where the victim mindset and the victor mindset go to war inside a person. Entitlement says the world owes me a win because I tried hard. Ownership says the world owes me nothing and I'll earn the win anyway. Tudor chose ownership. From prison, he kept writing letters, kept refining the plan. When he got out, he went straight back to work. He teamed up with a sharp young man named Nathaniel Wyeth, who invented a horse-drawn ice plow that could cut uniform blocks from frozen ponds at incredible speed. Suddenly, harvesting ice went from slow, expensive chaos to a repeatable system. Costs dropped, margins appeared. The crazy idea started to look like a business model. Then came the move that turned a comeback into a legend. In 1833, Tudor loaded a ship called the Tuscany with 180 tons of New England ice and sent it to Calcutta, India. A 16,000-mile journey, 4 months at sea, crossing the equator twice. When that ship arrived with most of its ice intact, the people of Calcutta were stunned. The British residents threw what amounted to a celebration. Tudor hadn't just delivered a product, he had delivered the impossible. By the 1850s, the man they mocked was known across the world as the Ice King. New England ice was cooling drinks in Havana, Rio, Bombay, and Hong Kong. The industry he invented from nothing employed tens of thousands of people, and it created the demand for refrigeration that shaped how we live today. Every cold drink you've ever enjoyed traces a line back to a 22-year-old that an entire city laughed at. So, what do we actually take from this? Because inspiration without application is just entertainment. First, the market doesn't reject good ideas, it rejects unprepared ones. Tudor's product was fine, his infrastructure wasn't. When something fails, ask what's missing around the idea before you abandon the idea itself. Second, your biggest cost can hide your biggest advantages. Sawdust was garbage until it became the key to the entire business. Look at what you're overlooking in your own work, the boring asset, the thing everyone ignores. Third, and this is the big one, ridicule is not data. The laughter of the crowd told Tudor absolutely nothing about whether ice would sell in the tropics. The only data that mattered came from shipping the thing, watching it melt, and learning. Critics measure your ideas against the present. Builders measure it against the future. Frederick Tudor spent over a decade losing before he spent 3 decades winning. Nobody handed him anything. No capital, not belief, not a second chance. He manufactured all 3 himself. That is the victor's path. It's slower, it's lonelier in the beginning, and it's the only one that actually leads anywhere. So here's my question for you, and I want you to actually answer it, not just nod along. What's the one idea you have shelved because somebody laughed or because version 1 melted in the harbor? And what's the single smallest step you could take on it? Not someday, but today, this week, before Sunday night? Well, write it down. Put a date on it. Because the difference between Frederick Tudor and the people who mocked him wasn't talent, money, or luck. It was that he kept loading the ship.